What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Redemption 46 Studios. I'm Nick.
Keith.
I'm Curtis.
Y'all know the vibes. Y'all seen the picture. Y'all seen the thumbnail. Y'all know why y'all here.
Oh, why you here?
Soo Young, Smoke Sprite, RM of BTS. Yeah, people have been talking about this. I have no idea what type of time this is on. I don't even know what this is for.
I've never heard of her, so I don't know the type of music that she does or the genre, but I'm interested.
So yeah, if this is your first time on the channel, hit that subscribe button, become a real redeemer today. Also for content like this, jump on the Patreon. If you love RM, we're going to be getting into the interview today for the the album stuff, for him talking about how he came up with some more themes and everything.
Okay.
Too. So that'll be up. The RM Live and Soul concert is literally up on YouTube as well.
Dope
album
concert.
review for Indigo is up on there. In the Suit, Run BTS, Bon Voyage, anything BTS related that you can think of is up on there. Stretchy Ties.
Interview RMN show.
God tier stuff.
Very insightful too.
Yeah. So yeah, no long time we can jump into this and have a conversation when we are done.
I like this.
It's one of the ones.
I like this.
Sound like some R&B.
Some nice vibey music.
Take already struck you in your dreams. Tell me more I can die. Take all I can be.
Shit.
What a powerful opener.
Chasing after, it makes me longer. You already know I'm not pretending. Knowing what I know is foolish to die. I apologize to your baby. I hate being an answer. You should tell me the truth. I know step close to a place. Yeah, it's time to get so straight on my knees. So you in the dreams. Tell me more I can die. Take all I can be.
That was a note.
Don't bother, oh baby, welcome to my favorite place. Yes, 공간에 멈춰 인간들의 ethics 용감한 채 눈만으로 상관없어. Shiny days tonight so I can kill you alright. I swear to God you don't need to be mine, just hit you right. Take it next level, just give me your best level. It's stage level.
Take all my needs.
Hey.
So you in the dreams.
360 rapper.
More I can die. Take all
I'm going for it.
that to breathe at the end too.
Yeah, they
That was
make sure y'all subscribe before we get into this banging ass conversation we about to have, and join the Patreon for all the exclusive RM content up there. Keith, this sounds like a Prince song that's packaged in 2023.
This sounds, you know what? I would agree, and I would take you further. This sounds like a Prince song that's done in a Philly neo soul vibe and brought into 2023.
Yes. Her voice is exceptionally
Bro,
wonderful. I love it.
So
And it's so crazy. On a night that we did a Jimin solo, this might be one of my favorite tracks of the night.
I ain't gonna go that far. It's like, nah, but it's, it's up there.
But it was so unexpected. It was so unexpected, and it blew me away.
We haven't heard her ever. So it's
Ever.
like, for her to come out so strong. Like,
And just like
wow.
the concept, like the video was just, it was almost just as abstract as the song.
You can feel the escape, like the escapisms in the video, the vortexes,
like clearly she was bound somewhere out in the sun, just beaming because she has a sunburn. And
you know
everything
why?
else.
You know what's funny about you saying like bound is because the background setting is the same setting as the Kanye Bound video when they like when he was doing the honey and all that stuff. All this.
That silhouette.
This is the silhouette stuff is the setting on Kanye's like Bound. And she was bound, and you could see all like the stuff would go off.
No, that was a good spot. Even like the whole thing with the arrow in the barn, it's her, so it's like a self-inflicted wound that she just knows is coming, and she can like, and you see both parties either fading in and out at different times. I guess like saying I can remove myself from this situation, but I'm choosing to kind of stay here because I want to be here. Or I want you in this end result, even though it's going to wound me in the process. No, I thought this was a great song. I'm actually going to download it as soon as one of you other guys start talking. But no, this was fire, and even RM's verse on the beat was just perfect. Like his tone, his inflection, his pacing, perfect. And more so, even after he got done his rap verse, because she's so powerful in her vocals, and I don't want to say loud because it was distorted that way to be extra loud, which is production amazing. His vocals, even just being under, stood out and almost completed the sound.
It fills in some of the like the layering because the reason why she was really bodying, I call them like I guess like the Prince inflections, just because of you hear it all the time on Prince, like ain't got no money, like the kind of like how he'll get like in kind of in that register, and she kind of was doing that and even kind of doubling up on it, and it sounds so decent and unique.
The funny thing is, Prince would do the double ups, but he would double up in RM's tone. You know what I mean? Like, or that's why he wrote a lot of songs for women. And he would always sing background vocals, like Love Bizarre. That was his song for Sheila E. But if you can hear him singing background vocals in a much deeper register, because just the way it always sounds good when you have that really high, strong register and that strong, low register, just kind of like bringing in the. It's an amazing sound. It's timeless and it'll always be good.
Opposites pairing like that in color theory and everything is literally considered complementary. And all that to say, you hear in music artists complement each other very well. I just feel like that was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and you said it at the end when you was like they like let the beat breathe. That's like another kind of Princeism too. He's arguably the greatest musician of all time. So he would. How many songs would just kind of rock out essentially and shit, and just let the production like take us home.
Even aside from that, it's like, I mean, in rather in tandem with that is like you let the emotion simmer of whatever you were just felt, whether it's the high point of a literal high note or like a last punch with a lyric or anything. When you let the beat kind of rock out like that, it just you just feel everything marinate. And I just feel like for how strong and how much of a presence, vocally for sure, lyrically as well, and even in the video, everything just meshed together so perfectly. And to have that segment at the end to just let the beat ride out, it really just let you sit and reflect and kind of simmer on everything and let it marinate.
It's literally the equivalent. It's literally the equivalent
Purple
of like
Rain, Die for You, Doves Cry. I mean, that's just off one album.
Yeah.
Like, Prince
say all that's one album.
No, seriously. But like Prince has a thing of and getting back to the Princeisms, and he's not the only one. Other people did it as well. And well, to be honest, almost everybody did it.
Yeah.
So if you were to go back to the 80s, you would have things weren't on CD or barely on tape. They were on record. And you would have the 12-inch mix, which means you probably got about a 7 to 8 minute, maybe even 12-minute song. So about maybe 6 minutes of that is all instrumental, either in the beginning of the song, middle of the song where they do a break, and then they loop it back around, or at the end of the song. It was made for like roller skating.
I was about to double down and say the music was made, the composition of music was made for different things during that time. So like you said, you were roller skating or partying or doing something, and it wasn't,
or just DJing.
Or just DJing. And
yeah.
And to double down on what you were saying at the time, it wasn't like today where it's millions of artists. It might have essentially been a couple hundred artists throughout the world. So you didn't have a lot of different music. So you kind of let those tracks go for 7 or 8 minutes and kind of let the instrumentation play out.
You weren't
those Earth, Wind, and Fire type, like tracks,
or war, or you know what I mean. But you also weren't getting as much music as you get today because there wasn't as much of a medium. I couldn't just upload a song and 5 minutes later 1 million people have heard it. No, it didn't work that way.
Nah.
Like the music process was so slow.
Yeah.
I remember when we watched the YouTube John. When it came down to like the best singles in American music or female music at that time, all the way back to like the 70s or the 80s, they were so spaced out, 3 to 4 months, because it took that long for the music to be released, to catch fire, to elevate up the chart, to run its course, and then fade back down. And that's before somebody else came and jumped you. So like it was just so crazy. Like what Mike released, 2 albums or 3 albums in almost 20 years?
Yeah.
Like that's a year in Stray Kids. You know what I mean? So like music is so different and it's digested different. We talk about like 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 16-minute songs or 60-minute cuts.
That's where the old heads would go with the argument and just
most
be
of
like,
is like 2-3 minutes. It's like microwave.
That's where the old heads would go with the argument, where it just be like, well, if I can do a 23-minute album, then that would have been 3 of our songs like back in the day and shit. But the media and everything has kind of just like changed so much. And Prince is an easier example to give, probably the Redeemers, because a lot of people probably can generally kind of just like go to that. This would be a lot harder to be like,
too.
Yeah, this would be a lot harder to say like, this sounds like an NDRE kind of beat, and somebody might be like, the fuck is you talking about? You know what I mean? So it's just, you definitely feel those hints of neo soul, like kind of like
Jimmy
in, like
Cozier,
in here.
who?
Yeah, and I like that a lot. This is a good joint and shit. This is giving me vibes to almost when we did Closer, and I guess shorty name was like Michaela, and like kind of how she was on there and had like a unique voice. Ironically, then when we did Wildflower and she had the unique voice, something about RM's pairing when like you have like such a contrast of like I don't want to say obscure voices and stuff, because I guess maybe people might take that like as a bad way, but just those voices where I think they would be very distinguishable.
Also, just to briefly add to that, and I don't know about the artist that was on Closer necessarily as far as like background or anything like that, but I know with Wildflower,
London singer.
But I know with Wildflower, with Eugene, for example, she was primarily rock. So her voice was a little different in the rock aspects of everything. So that pairing like was very different. And I don't know, of course, of her background. I'm not sure if she's in rock or kind of any other type genre like that. But basically, to echo kind of that point, like it's certainly something that whenever RM's voice is paired with kind of one of these female artists. And granted, this is her song featuring RM as opposed to RM's album featuring her, or vice versa. I just think that like the way he pairs kind of with like those female voices, and I don't want to kind of lump them into the same category or anything like that, but it's like the pairings just complement each other so well. Like I just keep coming back to that word, just complement. They blended together so well on this.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know who produced it, but I think anytime a producer gets on a track, he knows how he would imagine it if it was his. The complementary sounds that he would want to hear if it was his, and how he would do it. And maybe he doesn't say this is how we should do it, but suggest maybe we should do it this way. And like this sound is just so crazy. Like going back to even RM's album, when we talk about the features and the people he had on there and the way that album sounds, even fast forwarding into this, because to me it's all relative. He almost sound like if you took, perfect example, if you took all the names off the album and you mixed it with a Gorillaz album, would you be able to tell, like just hearing, like just from the eclecticness or the mix of genres or the mix of sounds, because you have a lot of loud sounds and even loud vocals, but the song, for as loud as it is, still has a soft feel, if that makes sense. And just the mix of that music and emotion to kind of get something that's not your everyday, that's almost an anomaly, like maybe a Gorillaz sound or a Gorillaz song. Those who know.
And we were partially right. She is a part of an indie rock band called CISO Neon. She's the vocalist and guitarist of the group.
That's incredible.
That makes sense too, because that guitar was very prevalent in the beat.
Yeah, she's a singer, songwriter, composer, and just overall musician.
Prince.
25 years old.
25? Shit.
Signed to Magic Strawberry Sound and BGBG Record.
Magic Strawberries.
Yeah. But yes, she looks like she has like quite the few, like the resume popping from what I see. But she classifies her genres as R&B, soul, and indie. It's not just kind of just rock. So, ironically, everything that we kind of just,
say, hey man, we ain't extras. We on to something. we on to something. Like,
yeah, but nah, it makes
give
sense.
us our flowers a little bit. We on to something.
And we talked about it too, because when we did Wildflower, I know I had brought up the Harvey Williams, like from Paramore, like kind of comparisons. Haley, I'm sorry.
No, you good.
Like those
Nobody knows who that
comparisons
is.
from somebody gonna know who she is. I hope people fuck with Paramore. He banging the shit. But
Is that the chick that sung with Bob?
with Bob is crazy. But nah, it's like. But it kind of makes sense though, just because this feels like that, but this feels more like kind of just straight up indie neo soul versus how Wildflower felt more like kind of pop rock
mass produced.
Yeah, like
mainstream neo soul.
Yeah. But it just works, man.
The rock vibes though are definitely prevalent.
Yeah. It just works, and obviously, what I'm about to say, you probably could say this with any member of BTS. RM seems like he just knows what's going to work on tracks as far as like what this person sounds like versus what I sound like, what they bring to the table versus what I bring to the table, and just makes it work. And just even him going for it with the vocals and stuff, you could see him on the video kind of just belting and just not kind of being afraid to kind of like just go for it. That's why I'm interested to see the RM thing too, to see if he took any advice from Pharrell.
No, but it was also safe because he never had to go high because she
was kind of already like doing it. I just got to be more bassy than you.
I just got to hold this tone, which he can do. We've seen him do it. We know he can. I mean, shit. When he did the Unplugged and did Fix Me or Fix You, he was holding note, like, you know what I mean. So he could definitely do that. And it was just it sounded so great. It like he didn't overpower. He didn't need to. You heard him just enough that it changed the feeling of the song.
Yeah, I'm just really proud of mostly all the BTS members, just because like they out here playing chess and other people are playing checkers. The abilities and things that they're able to do production wise and everything else, they've mastered knowing their voices and what they can do on tracks. You want to jump back in?
No, I just wanted to say, what was Big Bird's dog's name? Barkley? Was that it?
I don't know.
Her boots look like they shaved
funny.
Barkley. If you know, you know.
It's the trend right now.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, but all that being said, they
She needs some Goku boots.
yeah. All that being said, I just feel like they've mastered kind of knowing what like certain pairings are gonna do as far as like songs go. They're really artists, man, and a lot of people can't say that, like, you know, just kind of in general. But at this point, I don't know nothing that most of the members like can't do as far as like singing, rapping, being able to collab with people and write and do stuff.
Or still keep it yourself.
Some of them still producing and doing everything and still keep that sound. Because that's another thing too, not to run on a tangent, is that like, you know, you never want, I don't want to say like the K-pop artists not to sound like K-pop artists. Let me phrase it like this. You never want to hear BTS or any member of BTS jump on someone else's track and ironically feel like their soul is no longer there. Like the essence of who they are is like lost. And I think that was like, might have been some of, I'm not gonna say complaints, but gripes on certain collabs where it was just like we would have liked a little bit more of BTS as opposed of the artists.
Yeah, it just sounded like
that were on the track.
Right here, sing this.
Yeah, and it's like we never want that ability to not be there because we know how real their pens are. We know how real, like, you know, the production is with them and everything like that. And I just love the fact that regardless of whoever song they're on, and we can do this example with any member who's dropped anything over the last year, it felt still very much like them. Like, you know what I mean? It didn't feel like it's just like, oh shit, you jump on a track with like Drake and you just sound like Drake. And you know what I mean? It's just like, sometimes that's not cool. You want to see the actual collab.
J-Hope starting this verse, LVL. Like, what the fuck you know about LVL, bro?
Nah, it's just
Six God.
You said I'm not being funny, but it's just you real life want to keep like your soul
Absolutely
on tracks, because if you're not, then it's just it just feels like you just doing tracks for paychecks at that point.
As strange as it is, it's like, you know, if you're only yourself, you know, all the time, you're always going to shine through true. And it's just like, so no matter what you're doing or what, you know, collab you're a part of or anything, the essence of you is shining through. And that's something that if you're yourself, even if it's less people gravitating towards you, it's going to be the right people. And I just think that that's something that, you know, certainly seems to shine through, you know, for them as well. With honestly any of the collabs that, you know, they've been given the opportunity to.
Like, I always use personal experience to kind of explain how I feel. So my dad's a chef. I think I explained that before. I like the way he cooks certain foods. So I would try to cook it like him. And when I'm over his house, I would try to cook it like him. He hated that. And that's kind of how it is on the track. And I'll explain, you know, everything. It'll come full circle. So, but like that's kind of how it is on the tracks. If I'm Drake, I don't want you coming on my track sounding like me. Same thing for when I would cook for my dad. He doesn't want me cooking with the same ingredients, same taste palette, same flavor like he does, because if he wanted his own fucking food, he would have cooked it himself. He didn't need me to do that. If I wanted, you know, a track to sound like me completely, I don't need to pay you a feature fee to do that. I could have just done it myself. Had 3 verses instead of 2. So you always want the artist to remain themselves, and it seems like every time BTS gets on a track, they always remain themselves despite who they're on the track with. And that is the beauty part of them knowing themselves. And we talk about identity, we talk about authenticity, we talk about all that stuff. But for them knowing themselves before they even open their mouths and say a single word, they know who they are as artists, they know what their limits are. Or maybe they don't, and they push their limits, which is also amazing. But they always sound unapologetically like themselves. And not every artist can say that.
Yeah, I'm good.
No, yeah, for certain. It was, you know, just, I can't say enough about, you know, what, you know, her voice sounded like on here vocally. You know, certainly it being our first exposure to her as an artist and everything. Certainly, I was gonna guess kind of rock vibes, just with the, you know, the power in which, you know, she was belting and everything, and how she just had so much emotion, and it felt like desperate and pleading at the same time. And for what the production was doing, now knowing, you know, that she is, and I don't necessarily know if she's involved in the production of this, but I at least would believe that she had some kind of say in it. Especially this being her track, as far as like, you know, regards to what story she wants to tell and what direction she wants to take it. Whether it's in relation to an album or a single or whatever the case. I just think that, like the power in which she was kind of belting out, those notes and everything, literally in the first, 15, 20 seconds, those were the kind of runs that you felt like you would have got at like the end of a track, which just immediately, for certain caught, my attention and everything, had me engaged. It's just everything that she was, doing on this is vocally was incredible. I certainly think the lyrics were, really deep, and this being also like a 4-minute song, even though we do have like a, section for instrumental at the end and everything. I just think that they did such a great time of allowing the track to breathe, not just with the instrumental, but, in the lyrical phase where it's like it didn't feel like it was necessarily just a hook or anything for like, a minute and a half of the 3-minute segment or anything like that. It wasn't one of those kind of situations. Like it felt like there was a lot of lyrical depth and a lot of time kind of processing everything. Certainly the video is incredibly creative. And I really did love Arm's feature on it. And I'm sure certain people would probably, have liked him to have a little bit of a longer verse or anything like that. And I do understand, like, if you kind of tune in for someone, you might want to see more of them. But I just thought he had a perfect kind of line distribution. I thought he meshed incredibly well. Certainly the complimentary, the high, pitched kind of voice and vocalizing with, his lower kind of bassy register. And just how like calm, cool, collected he kind of sounded for a good portion of it. I like kind of some of the moments where they felt like they were kind of harmonizing together. It felt like there was a little bit of bass in some of that, at least, though I could be, remembering wrong only because it was the first listen. But it was, just the production register and everything they kind of brought to it on that level, I really liked. But getting a little bit into, the video and everything, I just think that this video was incredibly stylistic. So definitely shout out to whoever kind of storyboarded or had the direction of this. I love how they juxtapose so many different elements in it, the highs and the lows of whatever this relationship is. They echo that at the end with the kind of the ring lighting up as you're going up, but because you're in that sphere of everything, it doesn't necessarily know if you're going high or low. You're just traveling kind of in a direction. So I think that was, if at least what they meant it to be intended as. I thought they did a good job kind of conveying that, where it's like it represents something to you, but it could, depending on your perspective, it could represent something different. Even the aspects of like the don't run away and then run away right after that, as far as like you're kind of at odds within yourself, as Keith had said, the aiming the arrow at yourself seemingly and having the moments where you kind of poof or disappear. All that was super creative. I love the kind of the pixie fairy sort of aspects of everything of this, like I just think the kind of fairy tale aspect of that was really interesting. And the fact that it's, because I had no preconceived notions of like the title itself, but it being Smoke Sprite, like I don't necessarily know what that could be a reference to or anything. But the
It's
usage,
the feeling of when you drink the Sprite from McDonald's.
I knew you were gonna say that.
No,
J-Hope somewhere. The Sprite.
but the Sprite is also like a fairy, so that kind of goes with it too. And
Yeah.
even when she had the bow and arrow, she almost looked like one of the sprites from Legend.
Oh, Sprite is a fairy or something?
Yeah, it's a creature in fantasy. Could be used. Well, technically, sprites are smaller than fairies.
Yeah.
Sprites are very small. Sometimes even, you know how they show Tinkerbell as just a ball of light? That would be a sprite. A fairy would actually be almost a normal sized person with wings.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So, ironically, a little bit of almost Shakespearean aspect. I don't want to say like Midsummer Night's Dream or anything like that, but I definitely like the kind of whole.
It's in that.
Yeah, it's in that register or that
Narnia.
that kind of concept bubble, I guess.
Type thing.
But it was like I found that incredibly interesting. So definitely having a little bit more clarification on the smoke kind of sprite, as far as you could even perceive that smoke and mirrors or kind of delusion or illusion or whatever. So stuff like that is really interesting too. But I also love that kind of in the direction of the video when it got to Arm's part or whatever, because when they're traveling down this dark road and it's in like the fisheye kind of aspect or whatever, where it's really like kind of obscured and kind of honed in on, I guess, to convey that tunnel visionness, to whoever's perspective they're following. It does show that barn hay, which obviously we saw the fairy, kind of aiming, or the sprite, I should say, to correct myself, aiming the arrow down and everything. Basically punishing yourself with whatever this love or relationship represents. But the fact that they showed the hay kind of stack being there to kind of tie those things together. But then immediately after that, we had the car turned upside down. And you know how they or they relate to kind of death in certain aspects in the lyrics as well. But it's like they had this like upside down shot with RM and he's like at the base of kind of that, car accident or whatever. And then when they kind of zoom out or whatever, or cut to the next, part of that, the car is in a junkyard where it's like all these cars like stacked up right next to it. So I think that was like a really cool way of kind of conveying like, to tie in the sprite aspect to the death of whatever the relationship is or what low point it represents. So that stuff was like really conveyed well because it was subjective. Like it wasn't just straight on the nose as far as like the highs and lows and all that stuff. Like it was really open to a lot of interpretation. So I think that was really cool. I like that kind of the zoom in of like the eclipse look of the the moon over the sun or whatever. But it also looks like an eye a little bit as far as like zooming into someone's eye kind of. But the reason I was saying that is because, if you stare into the sun too long, you become blinded. So the whole aspect of like, this is a brightness, this is a high point for me, but it's also something that's kind of blinding me.
That circle of light thing kind of repeated itself throughout the video.
Yeah, certainly.
It was in the pool. It was in the spiral staircase when they inverted. It was also in what you're just talking about. And it was also essentially in the going down the path in the fisheye lens with the light, the actual spotlight.
Yeah.
And even the eclipse almost looked like an inverted spotlight shot. You know what I mean? Whereas the light was darking out, the darkest light. Just kind of giving that vibe. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and I like the kind of, as you would say, the raccoon eyes, as far as like, when it zoomed in on the sprite, aiming the arrow down, it looked like there was like it wasn't like an anger or like, a scoldingness of I'm trying to take you out. It looked like it was like regret or like apprehension. So the fact that it's, another side of yourself who's basically trying to save you from following down this path, knowing that it's destructive, but ultimately isn't able to pull the trigger right away. Basically shows that's like, how destructive it is, but whatever that relationship represents to you, it's something you can't help but find yourself going back to. And again, the pleading and desperation in her voice just exuded that so perfectly. And the last thing I was really going to say, at least in relation to the video, is, when it has that she was clearly like wrapped up in rope or something like that, and you see the sunburn, everything. I thought that was so cool to kind of echo a little bit of that high and low, how they play on opposites, because you see the sun kind of, burn through all that, and you see the scratch marks and everything too. But then you see her running through a field of snow almost, like it's like an icy kind of field, as you referenced the boots and everything. So basically, if that's to say the highs and lows of like, I was in this in the heat, but then I was also in this in the cold. So it was like opposite seasons. So kind of playing again on that high and low, that, opposite. But basically, whatever you were stuck in, you couldn't free yourself from by the time it's winter. So then that whole aspect of death, because how they say like, you die and everything like that. In the lyrics, and you see her like laying with her hair, in the water and everything, that kind of like almost like she's on an altar, surrounded by individuals and stuff. But yeah, the directing behind this video was so incredible. But on a production level, everything they did in tandem with that, like I really like RM's verse and how they complement everything, and kind of how he seems to take on the role of the one who, I don't want to say is the toxic one in the relationship or anything like that, but basically just kind of the one who's, I guess, a little bit more on that type time, perhaps. But I really like, his verse on this as well. But, when it let that beat ride out at the end and kind of just let everything marinate, I just think that was something that really tied everything together for me. Like, I would have liked it without that, but that was something that, took it from like a 10 to like a, 100 or something. But nah, I thought this was, all in all, this was incredible. I mean, I can't say enough about it, really.
I guess it's ironic that the vibe of the video felt like they should have been set free after the toxicity within a relationship and the self-harm and deprivation of the human soul.
Would this be part one?
Nah, but I do think a lot of these themes are like kind of universal themes. Like once you start talking about I want to say like self-abuse, like, whether it's mentally or like physically, I think can be kind of applied to so many different applications of like, relationships, mental health and everything else like that. And I think like the song definitely gives like a lot of leeway for you to be able to kind of insert and kind of like, take little things from it. The Sprite stuff, like I said, once you brought up the labyrinth thing, it's just all like, kind of clicking a little bit more, and it adds like a little bit more of a fantasy element to it. The bound stuff definitely like is And it's funny too. The aesthetic is kind of like Kanye and stuff too. And I wish I can kind of show y'all what I'm talking about. As far as I'll show them and stuff, but I'll show y'all too how the aesthetic is kind of the same way as Bound. So it's just a lot, and I think the imagery and stuff like this is the imagery and things like that are also decent and also like say a lot. I'm even getting like a Midsummer kind of vibe.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with the people surrounding.
Yeah, and it's just everyone's just kind of like
Taking
watching and taking that all in and stuff like that. And even there, it looks like she died, like maybe mentally, or at least felt like she had checked and stuff. So I like a lot of this, man. It's dope and decent, and this is kind of his another one of RM's features that's a little bit obscure. I thought like when he did the Bomb and Tiger John. I don't know if y'all remember that video. It was kind of super obscure, kind of as well. So it's just at this point, it seems like he's not really afraid. And I mean, obviously, we knew for a long time he'll do whatever the fuck he feels like. But doing these more obscure, videos and just kind of pushing the boundaries of, I guess, storytelling within like MVs for music videos. But yeah, that's my takeaway. Anything else with that, bro?
I had something, but I forgot when you.
My fault, bro. I probably was.
No. You good. It's not a big deal. No, I thought this was fire. I'm gonna definitely listen to this. It's probably gonna get a lot of spins this week.
Yeah, the Labyrinth thing probably threw off of everything you had going on.
No, it was more so. Actually, I do remember, but it's like it's. I mean, we had 37 minutes. I mean,
it's your world. We just living it. You can get your 3-minute clip off. Go ahead.
So like just the instrumental kind of right now, Kurt kind of alluded to like alluded to everything. Just having the emotion and letting the beat breathe. In a lot of music, especially a lot of older music or a lot of rock music or even a lot of neo soul, the instrumental helps the lyrics, helps everything kind of just be digested a little bit easier, as opposed to everything kind of being squished into 2 minutes and fast.
So ironic because the microwave version of things is about making it easier, but it actually makes it kind of the opposite effect.
Yeah, completely agree. But just just having those spaces in between the verse, like the hook of the bridge, there's usually like a small instrumentation there, and then like fading out on the end. It just kind of helps you digest everything that you just heard instead of, oh, I got it on the 7th time. Some people might get it on the 2nd because now you actually have time to take it in and it doesn't feel rushed. I love that aspect of it. Yeah. True.
And the next song doesn't just pop right back on. Like you
And
really kind of sit with
you
everything.
Well, I know on some albums, literally the instrumentation would fade into the next song. It would almost like, perfect example,
Bookend it?
Die For You and Baby I'm a Star, Prince. If you didn't know, you would think it was one song. Just because it just literally goes right into the next song.
Yeah, it's a lot of joints that get into that where it bleeds so heavily into the other one you don't even know when the songs were cut off. And it's really because back then, and even with K-pop, you really should be listening to all these kind of all in one sitting, and
because it's all one story.
It's all one story. Yeah, anything else from there? Yeah, man, jump in the comments. You want anything else? You cool?
Last thing I was gonna add was just the editing with the Pixie / Fairy and Sprite in this was that they broke the 180 rule as far as like kind of how they were editing the one side with them holding up the arrow, but then it spliced to the opposite end of the spectrum. With the other side of their face. So I thought that was a cool choice because whenever you kind of break that 180 rule, you're basically putting a character at odds with themselves.
Yep.
And the last thing I was really going to add in relation to that is the fact that, now granted, I don't know as much about the lore and how deep it goes, I'm sure, but in relation to what I imagine it could be perceived as too, is that if the fairy or / Sprite or Pixie is like if it's a fictional character and you're kind of imagining, the highs and lows of a relationship, then you would imagine that basically the fairy is like what you want the relationship to be versus what it won't ever manifest to kind of, reach the dream. aspect is, you know how they say like I'll be with you in your dream or I'm stuck with you in your dream. So again, the whole Midsummer Night's Dream aspect, because you're literally in the summer, but then you're kind of like, you know, kind of hoisted from it, I guess. So I just think that that's interesting too, if you consider that like it's a fictional thing and it's like what you want the relationship to be, but then ultimately it's something that you're kind of setting yourself up for, to kind of be disappointed every time. But then whatever that hope is that represents, you go back to it, you know, time and time again, I guess, you know, hoping that something will be made right out of it. But yeah, I just think that that's really interesting too. And I'm sure there's a lot more that goes into that, but I'm definitely really curious as far as, you know, all the other intents in that video. But it honestly was like a perfect song to me. I don't have like a single thing I would have changed about it.
Same. Yeah, I hope you guys love that reaction. If any of y'all are going through anything today, I pray that, you know, this was something that, like, you know, really put a smile on y'all face. It's our favorite time of the week, so hopefully this is your favorite time of the week as well. If you love it here, hit that subscribe button, become a real redeemer today. Join the Patreon for more content like this, especially RM related. We're literally about to jump into the RM, I think it's called Magazine something, but it's about him highlighting a lot of stuff like on Indigo. The RM Live and Soul stuff is up there, and the album review, J-Hope stuff is up on there. Suge Day was up on there. If you love all the Jim and stuff that just dropped too, when that album drops, that, you know, we'll be having all that content up there as well. But yeah, Redeemers, we love y'all. We're gonna holler at y'all.
Love y'all.
Peace.